Okay, before I get into talking about the game, I want to say that I'm new to YouTube and this is my first video. I'm really looking forward to making content and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you do enjoy the video, please like and subscribe to my channel, it'll really help me out. Okay, to start things off, let's get into the game. The game's name is Warframe and I love that game. The very first thing you need to know about this game is that it's free to play, right? You don't need to spend any cash to actually get the game. Most of you out there happen to know that free to play games suck, but mostly they suck because they're filled with paywalls. If you guys don't know what paywalls are, paywall is basically content that's locked behind a transaction. Yeah, sometimes I do feel like free to play games cost way more than a regular $60 game, or near about 4,000 rupees in India. It's not to say they don't deserve our money, maybe they do, maybe they don't, but rather they should just ask us upfront to pay, you know what I mean? Instead of hiding behind a sleazy pay to win mechanic. Gamers like any other customer prefer to be treated with honesty, right? Rather than get scammed, obviously. This is precisely why most free-to-play games fail. Well, that along with incompetent game design and false advertising, of course. Yeah, sure, games like Fortnite and Dota 2 do happen to be free-to-play, but then again, one's a battle royale and the other one's a MOBA. Yeah, at the end of the day, they fall under a gameplay genre where you're doing the same thing over and over and over again. There's no paywall to experience new content, so they're not really lying to you. And this formula is precisely why the mentioned games are going to live on. Because people, by nature, do love competition, and since it's free to play, it just means that you can enjoy the competition without having to pay for games with similar mechanics. People do expect a certain quality when playing games, you know what I mean? And it's up to the game to live up to those standards, even if it falls under our free-to-play genre. It's precisely why many other games fail. Because when you compare it to a fully priced counterpart, it doesn't live up to the same standard. Now let's look at Warframe, the game that I'm actually supposed to talk about, right? So here's what Warframe is. It's a third-person looter shooter. In India, not many people play looter shooters for some reason. Okay, looter shooters, for example, the games like Destiny or The Division, right? If you guys have played it, you'd know. Anyway, these games, they primarily focus loot aspect actually. Just to put things into perspective, there's a game called Borderlands, and the game is often dubbed as the original looter shooter, right? That game has about 1 million guns, and guns or gear is counted as loot in those games. Ideally, it gives us a high whenever we get new loot. I don't know what it is, it just gives us this sense of satisfaction getting new loot, better loot, getting the next best thing, you know what I mean? The shooting part, I don't have to explain myself, everyone freaking knows what a shooter is. Also, every looter shooter is PvE, which PvE would be player versus the environment or player versus enemies, right? It means you get along with other people, you squad up, and then you fight enemies together. It's co-op in its actual sense. You have to cooperate together and complete missions. Some games do have PvP, like Division has the Dark Zones and it has Conquests or whatever. It doesn't mean you can't play the game alone. It just means that the game is way more fun playing it together, right? Having said all that, the question still remains. Why should you as an individual try out Warframe, right? Well, firstly, it's because I said so, and and secondly, as a guy living in India, see, all I see around me are games like PUBG, Fortnite or Dota 2, which are all free-to-play games, by the way, but I hear no talk about Warframe. So in a way, I guess I am promoting Warframe in India. It's not like I'm getting paid or anything. I want to promote it because I love the game, alright? I've been playing this game for about 6 years now. I actually came across this game by mistake and I thought, let's just give another free-to-play game a try. You know what I mean? At first, I thought I'll be disappointed, but I was wrong. I was really wrong. Even back in 2015, it was really good. I started playing the game then, and I still find myself playing it constantly. And there's a reason behind it, because they keep adding new content every month, man. And there's no, like, every time you get into Warframe, say once in a month or like every once in a while, you find yourself experiencing newer contents, you know what I mean? There might be a new gun or new cosmetics or a new character even, or some gameplay or a mission that wasn't there before, or an entirely new map. Warframe keeps things interesting, to say the least, right? When I started playing it, not many people knew about the game. But if you look at the top 10 most played games in Steam right now, Warframe's gonna be there. It's got like 26 million registered players. That doesn't happen as a fluke. I mean, they must have done things right to get there. They got a lot of things right, not to say that they're perfect. They have made mistakes, but no one in the Warframe community can disagree with me when I say that there's no other game, at least in the looter shooter genre, that's done so much for the players as much as Warframe did. Alright, coming to the gameplay mechanics, right? Well, one thing you need to know is Warframe is a complicated game. Anyway, the game's tutorial can never do the game justice. There's a lot to learn, and I kind of agree with the fact that you can't be taught everything in the game, because the game is just too open in nature. Firstly, your character is going to be called a Tenno, alright? And you can control an android called Warframe. That's basically the gist of the game. There's about 40 Warframes, around 400 weapons, 20 or so companions. There's a thing called Archwings. There's Amp, there's Skateboard, Rivens, Arcanes, Mods. These are the things I can think of off the top of my head. There's a lot, and they can't really hold your hand and teach you everything, right? Which is why this game is so good, because more than anything, as a new player, you really enjoy learning about the game. Of all the looter shooters I've played so far, Warframe is by far the most complex and the most grindy. And that's okay. It's a free-to-play game, so they can't have people rushing through the game and finishing everything in a month. There's like 5 different factions of enemies right now, and all the factions are so distinct from each other, man. I mean, one's a matriarchal military faction, one's a faction that basically represents the upper management of any multi-million business, and one is the good old Horde from Halo. The other two, well, there's something as well, but I don't want to spoil everything. You can figure it out yourself. Also, let me just say, they actually have a good story in the game. Not the best, but they're pretty good. They got comic books based on the game, and every year they release a continuation to the story, like a major story arc, which is always on point, trust me. See, I said that Warframe is a looter shooter, right? That's completely true, but since it's a free-to-play, it did change up the formula a little bit, which in my opinion, it's kind of required, and it is quite unique. Normally in a looter shooter, you'd be incentivized to farm weapons and gear just by killing enemies and getting the loot they drop. They straight up drop gear, and you can equip said gear and continue to play on. Gears don't have any leveling system, but rather the gear that does drop from enemies, they adjust to the level you're in, right? For example, if you're a level 15 in the Division 2, the gear that drops from enemies will be level 15 with varying rarities. It can be a standard, rare, epic, or high-end. So say a high-end gear drops for you, right? At level 15, that's gonna have a set amount of power rating, or whatever gear rating. If a rare weapon drops for you, then that weapon is gonna have a much lower power rating than the one you got before at the same level, alright? Crafting in games like Division or any other loot shooter, it becomes helpful, but not when you start the game. It only becomes helpful when you're at end game, when you got everything ready and you wanna specifically focus on getting the best loot possible. In Warframe, however, crafting is everything. See, gear doesn't drop from enemies at all. You might get blueprints as a drop, but that's only primarily from bosses or mini bosses. In Warframe, enemies drop materials or resources. You can either buy the blueprint for the gear you want from the market or from other sources, or you have to farm the blueprints if they're not available to you. Let me give you an example, right? There's a weapon in Warframe called Fullmin. It's a new weapon. What you do is you go to the market and you get the blueprint. Alright, once you do that, you're gonna see the gun requires a certain amount of resources to craft. So what you're gonna do now is you're gonna go to the specific planet that provides these resources. You're gonna kill enemies in those planets, and those enemies are gonna drop resources for you. Once you get enough resources, you head back to your ship, you go to your foundry, and you begin crafting the weapon. And once the weapon is crafted, you have to level it up, and then you can mod it. I'll talk about modding in a while, but you get the gist of the farm. There's a key difference between the way you obtain gear in the two games. In Warframe, you focus specifically on the gear you want by either buying or farming the blueprint and then collecting the resources you need. Then you level it up. In Division 2, you just end up killing enemies till one enemy drops the gear you want with the highest rarity possible, obviously. The gameplay model of Division is how most looter shooters operate. Warframe actually deviates from the model a little bit. But that's okay. Again, it's a free-to-play game, They have to fucking sustain themselves. Okay, now let's talk about modding. See, usually you'd expect the gear to get better as it levels up, right? But that doesn't happen in Warframe. In Warframe, leveling up increases only your mod space, alright? So modding a gear increases the gear stats. So in a way, leveling does make your gear better, but not directly. It only helps indirectly. Say you want your weapon to do more damage, right? You put a damage mod. You want your Warframe to have more health. Throw in a mod called Vitality. You want more crit chance on your melee weapon? Put in the mod True Steel. Modding is like bread and butter for the game. You need to know how to mod your gear to progress further into the game. But that's okay. The more you play the game, the more you learn how to mod your stuff. And there's a ton of guides for that online, so don't worry about it. Movement is quite important, alright? Once you start playing higher level missions, actually once you start playing missions, say around level 50, you can't stand still. You really can't. Because if you stand still in one place, you're gonna die. That's what's gonna happen. Also, just letting you guys know, there's no covering mechanic in Warframe, and levels aren't really designed for you to take cover. So don't bother trying to hide behind a corner and shooting, alright? Enemies do take cover, weirdly, I don't know why, but that doesn't work for us. Just know that as long as you can master movement, you're gonna survive in the game, right? Warframe is a game that makes you feel empowered to use your character, right? So you play a game, if you've ever played a game called Prototype, then you can sort of compare it to that, right? It feels like whatever you do, you're gonna feel powerful. When you start the game, it doesn't really feel like it, okay? But once you progress ahead and you become more attuned to the game, you can clear rooms full of enemies in a click at the click of a button, right? What I'm trying to say is, weapons and all, they feel good. Movement feels good. But the Warframe's abilities are what's gonna make you feel like a god. Some Warframes can kill hundreds of enemies in a minute. Some Warframes can tank through the hardest difficulties. I'm talking about like level 500s, level 1000s even. There are Warframes that can keep everyone alive and give them damage reduction. Some Warframes can travel 1,000 meters in game in seconds. Some Warframes can stop time. Some Warframes can slow people down. Some Warframes can, I don't know, dance, make music. There's a lot of varieties, alright? There is just so many varieties and so many combinations that you can try out with Warframes. And that's exactly why I enjoy playing it, because it doesn't limit your thinking. They encourage us to go above and beyond the expected. And that's really fun. The devs themselves can't predict the outcome of synergies that occur, because the players have so much of freedom. They explore new avenues of gameplay every fucking time. There's so many mechanics in the game that it's just impossible to discuss all of them, right? The thing is, Warframe is a very organic game. What I mean by that is, it's a game that changes according to the person who plays it. See, there are many games that give you the freedom to do whatever you want. I won't disagree with that, but I'd say that Warframe is the game that does it best. There are like endless possibilities to how you can do one thing in the game, and the actual fun factor of the game is figuring these things out. Now, I've praised the game a lot, but it doesn't mean that the game is all sunshine and roses. There are some real problems with the game, the main problem being that there is no actual endgame. In looter shooters, raids are usually referred to as endgame, and after a player has finished everything in the game, raids do happen to keep you around, playing again and again. It's difficult as fuck and is usually the only gameplay that hosts more than the usual 3 or 4 player squads, right? Usually hosting about 8 players in one raid. Warframe did have raids at one point, but it was removed. I know it wasn't perfect, but it was good. Having said that, it'll supposedly be back in the future. But what it did is that it left an endgame void in the game. Right now, its faction frame is usually referred to as the main endgame. I mean, I can't disagree, but yeah. Don't get me wrong though, there's enough content to satisfy you for like half a year, just that there's no actual endgame as such. Ribbons come close, but it's not really endgame, and you'll know about Ribbons later on as you keep playing. Other than that, there is a content drop that occurs every now and then, but it's not usually something very concerning. I mean, the devs are the size of 1/5 of any other major game studios, and so it's actually quite commendable that they achieved the level of perfection for the game. There are some other little annoyances, but I guess the community just learns to live with them. See, there's a lot that I can say about the game, and I really don't want to bore you guys. So what I'm gonna do is I'll talk about the game bit by bit in other videos, right? The game's a masterpiece to say the least. It's not a game that's gonna disappoint anyone who tries it out. So just give it a try. It's free, and if you don't like it, you can just delete it. You know what I mean? I started playing the game when I was in my first year of college. I used to be busy throughout the day, but every time I got back home, I just hook up to my PS4 and start playing Warframe. At the beginning, it was all very overwhelming and I couldn't grasp the game at all. But as I kept playing over the year, I began to enjoy it so much. The game is really fun. It gave me a sense of accomplishment as a gamer, which I never really felt playing any other free-to-play game. Games like Fortnite or PUBG are good, yes. but they're very competitive. They don't really give you a sense of accomplishment every day. Warframe doesn't ask you to compete. You get to meet so many different people and yeah, sure, each other out. When I started, there were so many different people who helped me out, and it made my gaming experience that much better. The Warframe community is a very welcoming one, and they really want you to just play the game. I guarantee you, if you ever try Warframe out, you're definitely gonna enjoy it. And if you don't, then you really don't need to buy it. It's not really a loss for you. Thanks for watching the video. Please like, subscribe, and share the video. I'm gonna be making Warframe content along with other games, so stay tuned and watch my videos. And yeah, thank you. See you guys. Good night.